Shalom and welcome to Inside the Times and Seasons. This is a study where we do a linguistic analysis of the names of the appointed times of Yahweh, and we're going into the second feast today on Unleavened Bread. If you haven't already seen the series on Passover, I suggest that you look at that. The Colonel says Hebrew is a dense language for a dense people. What do we mean by a dense language? The meaning for each word is encoded in the letters of the word. So each word makes a kind of a word picture by the letters. There is also a system of related roots that give a deeper meaning to each word. And the grammar of the language compresses many ideas into one word unit. So you might find in one word, certainly the word and, the person who was doing the action, who they did the action to, and maybe even what direction they were running in the time they did that action. So in this series, we will not be discussing the pictures, meanings of the words. That's more in the realm of Paleo-Hebrew, and the grammar we're covering in another series. So in this series, we're just going to look into the related root. What does a dense people mean? So the name of this feast is called Chag HaMatzot, the Unleavened Bread. And this is the second of the feasts of Yahweh that we can read about in Exodus. It began at the time of the Exodus, and every festival is an occasion to be remembering the Exodus from Egypt, because as we learned in the series on Passover, it all goes back to our initial salvation experience. The story, you know, the Israelites did not have time to let their bread rise, so they ate unleavened bread, they ate matzot. And we almost always see this word in the plural. There's 2 or 3 occasions where it appears in the singular, which is matzah. The word matzot comes from a root, mem tzadi, matzatz, and it means to draw out or to suck the sweetness out of something. We see it in Isaiah 66:11, that ye may suck and be satisfied with the breasts of her consolations, that ye may milk out and be delighted with the abundance of her glory. The parent root is a 2-letter phoneme which expresses an idea but is not necessarily a word by itself. Sometimes it is, but not here. The parent root for matzah is just the mem and sadi. So we're going to look at the words that are related to this parent root. This root is related to all kind of wringing or squeezing actions of separating something out of something else. It also has the idea of what might come forth as a result of this squeezing and wringing actions. All the 3-letter roots that we're going to look at are related to these concepts. The first root is mitz, mem yud tzadi, and it means to squeeze. And interestingly, it's used for all these 3 words in Proverbs 30:33. Surely the churning of milk bringeth forth butter, and the wringing of the nose bringeth forth blood, so the forcing of wrath bringeth forth strife. So all those words, churning, wringing, and forcing, are the same word in Hebrew. We see the idea of squeezing and wringing until something comes forth. Mitz is also the modern Hebrew word for juice. So if you're in Israel, you order mitz tapuzim, you're going to get orange juice, and mitz anavim, you're going to get grape juice, and so on. I recommend carrot juice myself. Another root is mem vav tzadi, motz, which also in a meaning of wringing or forcing something out by oppression, and so we get the idea of extortion. In Isaiah 16:4, let mine outcasts dwell with thee, Moab. Be thou a covert to them from the face of the spoiler, for the extortioner is at an end. The spoiler ceaseth, and the oppressors are consumed out of the land. So the person who's squeezing you for money or goods, they're an extortioner. So we have another meaning that comes from this by extension. That is actually the word for chaff. After you have wrung what's good out of the wheat, you have something left over, which is chaff. Psalm 1:4, the ungodly are not so, but are like the chaff which the wind driveth away. We have another related root, matzah mem tzadi he, a verb meaning to wring out or to suck out. We see this in the story of Gideon in Judges 6:38. And it was so, for he rose up early on the morrow and thrust the fleece together and wringed the dew out of the fleece, a bowl full of water. There's definitely a wringing action to get something out. In Isaiah 51:17, awake, awake, stand up, O Jerusalem, which hast drunk at the hand of Yahweh the cup of his fury. Thou hast drunken the dregs of the cup of trembling, and wrung them out. You've drunken the dregs all the way to the bottom. Another root related is matzah mem tzadi aleph, which means to find something. The idea behind this is that you thoroughly look through everything until only the thing that you're looking for remains. We see in Genesis 2:20, and Adam gave names to all cattle and to the fowl of the air and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found an helpmeet for him. So they went through all the living creatures, but there was nothing found. There was nothing left over that was right to be Adam's mate. In Genesis 6:8, Noah found grace in the eyes of Yahweh. So Yahweh had looked through all the earth, and the people were all degenerate and wicked. He was about to destroy the earth. But after going thoroughly through that, he found one good thing, and that was Noah, one good person. We have one more root, aleph mem tzadi amatz, to be strong as if from being under pressure, from being squeezed. There are certain metals which are put under pressure so that they can be strong. You know that a diamond is made from being under pressure, and it's the strongest element there is. We see this in Joshua 1:9. Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for Yahweh thy God is with thee wheresoever thou goest. We've talked about cognate roots. Cognate roots are roots that are related to each other by linguistic rules of sound shift. And some of the roots we're going to look at today are mazah mem zayin he and masha mem shin he. Mazah means to be thin or emaciated. And we'll see this in Deuteronomy 32:24. They shall be burnt. We see the translation NASB is wasted, and the Young's literal translation, it's exhausted. It's something that's so used up that there's almost nothing left to it. It's so thin. And if you've eaten matzah, you know that it's pretty thin. They shall be burnt with hunger and devoured with burning heat and with bitter destruction. I will also send the teeth of beasts upon them with the poison of serpents of the dust. To be thin. Masha, probably you can already recognize this root. It means to draw out. In Exodus 2:10, and the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe, Moses, and she said, because I drew him out of the water. Likewise in Psalm 18:16, we see Yahweh, he sent from above, he took me and drew me out of many waters. There's a parallel idea there, that to be drawn out of the water. Now there's something very interesting about the word matzot, and it has a correspondence to another word in writing. You probably know that the vowels in Hebrew are a late addition to the written language. The old, even Torah scrolls now, have no vowels. They have no markings that indicate the vowels, and those vowels were not added until maybe the 6th or 9th century by a group of people called the Masoretes, because they realized that the people had lived in Babylon for so long that the Torah, although it was read all the time, was being really passed down from generation to generation, and they were afraid that the pronunciation would be lost. So they invented this system of vowel markings, and they also invented the system of cantillation, which is not uniform across the Jewish communities. There are lots of ways of singing the notes, but they give the grammatical pauses the way we would have periods and commas and exclamation points. So if you look at an old scroll, you will just see two words that actually appear exactly the same once the vowels are removed.